Ah! Bad boys! Bad boys! I once again, the Detroit Pistons sits on top of the basketball world. Yeah! Oh, I've been waiting for this. Oh, they ain't finna send out a notification for this. They didn't do it at all the whole time. I don't know what went wrong and what happened, but they didn't. So I'll forgive you for not being here because they did not send out a notification. But oh my goodness. You want to talk about crazy? We bounce to get crazy. They gonna say, well, it's too early. It's never too early to get down. Now, you guys have witnessed something that don't usually happen. All right. This doesn't usually happen. You never see a chance or opportunity like this present itself in such flair as what it is right now. I'm telling you. Oh, definitely. They've blocked this whole video. Really, they have. They have blocked this whole video, but I will not let them show my moment because this is what we've been waiting for. This reveal. The shroud has fallen and the whole world can see it. Isiah Thomas is back. Zeke is back. Now that Isiah Thomas is back in the fold, where do we go from here? Because Zeke is back, and he's back bigger than ever. Oh, yeah. 24/7, it don't stop, it don't close. This is it. What is the connection? How did the Suns owner, the new owner of the Phoenix Suns, Mac Ishbia, turn to Isiah Thomas, right? And basically trusts Isiah's every word when it comes to basketball. Whew. This goes back, way back. Chris Paul exposed it to the whole world what Carcino already knew. That Isiah Lord Thomas III is already in position over there. Remember when the incident happened when the Joker hit and whatever hit the owner and he took the dive and all that? Oh, Ralph, that's a whole different subject from what we're talking about. I appreciate the super chat, but this is nothing to do with MJ. Appreciate it. Thank you for your super chat, though. Now, well, I guess MJ do play a little part in this because of Michael Jordan's influence within the NBA. He was able to basically influence to have Isiah Thomas written about in a negative way and not promoted in the way that he should be. And when they write the book of history because of this fake dynasty of the Chicago Bulls, that played a part in all this. Isiah was meant to be a villain in this story where they made Michael Jordan the protagonist. Isiah was made to be the antagonist in this story when they make the documentaries. And it's ridiculous. It's the narrative that, well, Isiah and them used to just beat up on the Bulls and they stood up to the bullies and they went and lift weights in the summer. And then they were tougher and then Detroit couldn't bully them anymore. So now they can beat them now because they lift weights. It's the stupidest shit I've ever seen in my life. But hey, it's a documentary, but it poisons the youth. The youth felt this way. So therefore, there's been this misconception of reality when it comes to this fallout. Well, you can make a suggestion, Ralph. You can make a suggestion, and it's not a bad suggestion. But Sino don't do requests. But I appreciate you. Now, here's the thing. Matt Ishbia is a billionaire worth about 6.5 billion. And when Robert Salver had his situations that was going on, the opportunity was there. Isiah Thomas is respected in the basketball community from Michael Jordan's era to this era here. Both eras. Michael Jordan's era, nobody really respects anybody from that era. They don't really deal with the youth of today. Isiah communicates through both of them and is respected with his takes. They stop to listen to Isiah talk. When Isiah is speaking, they stop and they listen. They said, Isiah's listening, talking. We should be listening right now. Period. Despite what anybody else might have to say, we might need to hear this if Isiah Thomas is talking. Now, the way it's playing out, how did this happen? How did he get in position to buy the team? Well, first off, let's go through Matt Ishbia. Matt is a Michigan native. Went and played Division I ball at Michigan State. Watched Isiah Thomas play as a kid when he was 6 and 7 years old. And he knew. He says, I fell in love with the game of basketball at 7 years old, watching Isiah Thomas and the Pistons play and win championships. He's one of those kids that was watching the television set in Michigan, watching the greatest player in the history of the game. Matt Ishbia said one thing that stood out. He said, in Michigan, Isiah Thomas is the GOAT. No matter what the rest of the world might say, Isiah Thomas is the GOAT. Nobody has done what he done. And the way they sit there and try to put other players above him is nonsense. Oh, of course. Isiah Thomas went through a very hard time with the Knicks. They had to settle a lawsuit with a former employee, this Anuka Brown, who was like talking about sexual harassment against the Knicks, and Isiah, which Isiah venomously denies when he was the executive vice president for the Raptors. Normally, you don't ever get a chance to get back in that seat. Isiah Thomas is not back in that seat, ladies and gentlemen. He don't want that seat because that seat comes with a lot of heat. So Matt is the owner. And when you remove ownership, and normally you come in, you bring in your own guys. So the president of basketball operations is still there. But before that even happened, Matt Ishbia and Isiah Thomas actually met. And he is a huge fan of Isiah and listens to Isiah, as Isiah is one of the people that's on his board in his mortgage company, which is called United Wholesale Mortgage. And they're close friends. So now when they're doing this front office reboot, you have James Jones that's still there, but he was brought in under Sauber. So when Matt makes his decisions, he was actually going to be a D1 coach for basketball when he stopped playing basketball. So Matt Ishbia knows the game of basketball. He loves the sport. So Isiah is somebody he intends to hire into a front office position, but nearly not one that has a lot of attention as what people may think. But Chris Paul puts all of this into perspective because he mentioned Isiah and Matt must not want me around anymore. Or they just think I'm not a fit. No, it's not personal, Chris. It's only business. See, this is what Chris Paul didn't understand and didn't get. The Pistons are running things. The Pistons just in Phoenix now. Of course, Isiah Thomas is calling the shots. The Pistons are back, baby, in a big way. We ain't going nowhere. We running this thing. Woo! Woo! We running things. We running things. Oh, yeah. The greatest player in the history of the game is still making moves. And Chris Paul is out here butthurt because he's acting like he didn't know this was coming. The Suns wasn't paying you $30 million, but they made sure they did something to guarantee you get your money. They could have just waived you and gave you your $15 million. You got your other $15 million. So Isiah made sure you got your other $15 million. And now you're looking at him like he's the bad guy. Okay. Now, 6 years ago, we went through this position before. Isiah Thomas knew Chris Paul since he was in high school, knew of him, knew how great he was, wish he would have had an opportunity to grab Chris Paul when he was in the front office. That did not happen because he knew Chris would go very high, but knew he was one of the most talented and one of the last true point guards of that era. A point guard with his ball handling ability and shooting ability. He would be one of the best in the league, would win multiple championships. Isiah saw all of this for him. He saw all of this for one person, Chris Paul. But when Chris wasn't living up to those expectations, Isiah noticed something in Chris 6 years ago that many of the other people didn't see because they're probably fanboys. So let's go to school. Right? Here it is. The guys are sitting there. Speed up this play a little bit. As Isiah goes into this full speaking about Chris Paul's legacy.
Those two words went together. I have not heard him speak of winning a championship now in a couple of years to play. And Chris has gotten to this place of being safe. When he first came into the league, you mentioned Chris Paul and championship together. You know, those two words went together. Being safe. When he first came into the league,
listen, clear words.
When he first came into the league, you mentioned Chris Paul and championship together. You know, those two words went together. You mentioned Chris Paul and championship together. You know, those two words went together. I have not heard him speak of winning a championship now in a couple of years. I think he's fallen into this assist to turnover ratio thing where, you know, Chris is a very safe player right now. And statistically, you know, he maxes out in every box. However, I don't see Chris going outside of himself, outside of those boxes to take extraordinary risk. And, you know, this assist to turnover ratio, if you look back at some of the best point guards to ever do it in our league, you know, we generally had 3 to 4 turnovers a night because we took risks. Stockton took risks. Magic Johnson took risks. I took a risk out on the floor. You know, to play a game where you have only 1 turnover or 0 turnovers, that means you're playing relatively safe. You're playing good basketball, but you're playing safe. And you know, you right now, Chris is at the point now he's got to push past safe. He's got to push past the numbers where he can go into the locker room and say, well, I got 20, I got 9, I got 3, hey, I did my job. No, you got to push past safe.
Yeah, it's safe. I equate it to driving in a car.
So right there, very key statements about Chris Paul and his game. Chris Paul is too safe. He plays a safe game. So as he was playing a safe game, right? Well, I'm glad you guys are, aware this morning. But Chris Paul plays a safe game. And this is what Isiah was saying. Like, I'm noticing he's not living up to his potential. You know, he hasn't even talked about winning a championship anymore. He's just content with not really winning it and not really going for it. Now, that was a very true statement. Now, about 2 years ago, he went right into addressing Chris Paul because Chris Paul grew up watching Isiah Thomas. This is one of his favorite players of all time. Isiah is one of the greatest players to ever play in this league. But to have that happen, That's because he's one of the greatest players of all time. Oh, by far he is. I mean, it's not even close. So to compare, that's like somebody compared Chris Paul saying, is Chris Paul better than Isiah Thomas? I was like, come on, stop. It's not even close. But Chris Paul is a fan of him. And because of that, Isiah went and gave him his flowers. Let's listen.
Chris, on getting to the finals. I know how difficult this journey is for us as small men trying to get here. And there have been a lot of nights where I'm sure you wondered if you would ever get there, just like I wondered if I would ever get there. But it seems like right now you have found the right place for you in terms of James Jones being the general manager, Monty Williams being the coach, and then you being the coach out on the floor. And it just feels like this is the perfect storm and the perfect situation for you arriving in the finals and then having the support and also the knowledge base in the front office that you can orchestrate and dictate out on the floor. How does that feel for you as a player right now?
Well, it's a lot of trust, and I'm a fan of the game too. So obviously, Zeke, I watched you all day, every day. Watched Kenny. Hell, I played against Shaq. Got sent to the floor a couple times because Shaq was a hack, man. Shaq used to just foul you just to let you know he was there, just to let you know he was there. But with our team, man, I think what I love is the trust. The trust factor. Y'all know, y'all done played in the league. When practice over, if you see a guy leave the gym and then game come and you kick it to him, you're like, hey, man, you don't work on that. You don't work on that. But with our team, we got such a work team so that when we got a thing, I keep saying it tonight, we call it good to great. You know what I mean? If I got a good shot, I trust the next guy that I can pass it up if he got a great shot. And when you do that all season long and the coaches drill it day in and day out, you trust the system.
And I just want to say one more thing. I'm honored to be compared and our names are mentioned in the same breath.
You honored, so I am.
No, really, I'm honored. I'm honored. Well, first of all.
See? And that's why he said, because they had the comparisons, he said, I'm honored. And that's why he said, I'm honored, to show that there's nothing, this is no knock on Chris Paul. Chris Paul, it's business. You are a 40-year-old man. If I can get rid of you right now to get Bradley Beal, it's going to be done. You were traded out of Houston to go to what? The OKC Thunder. What did they get in return for him? Who did they get when they got rid of they got Russell Westbrook? They traded and got Russell Westbrook for Chris Paul. Now they got Bradley Beal for Chris Paul. So it's not like you haven't been traded before. You were traded to the Clippers. Then from the Clippers, you went to the Rockets. Then you went from the Rockets to OKC. Then you landed in Phoenix. You were up 2-0 when you had this interview with Isiah, and it was looking like y'all were finna be the champions. You do not win another game after this conversation with Isiah Thomas. From this moment on, Chris Paul's career fell in the toilet. From this moment, when Isiah gave him his flowers too soon. After that, he got safe. He got safe again. Isiah gave him his flowers right there when they were already comparing him to Isiah when he was 2 games up 2-0. It was looking like they're getting ready for the victory party in Phoenix. And what did he do? He fell apart. So you got Kevin Durant, you got Devin Booker here, and you got a guy who you can't depend on in the playoffs to be healthy. He was hurt that year. Every time in the playoffs, he gets hurt. So you can't depend on Chris Paul to be there at the end of the season. Now I got a younger guy that could give me 50 if I need it. And he could run the point if I need him to run the point. Nowadays, you don't need a traditional point guard. The game is not really called to have a traditional point guard. Everybody has a scoring point guard. So now you have everybody bringing the ball up. Hell, you have Bam on the bottle bringing the damn ball up. You had all of these people playing the game at a different level. They're raising the stakes. And now Isiah has got his guy who he talked into buying the Phoenix Suns, saying you should buy the team. Isiah is now back in the catbird seat. He's back where he needs to be. Well, their connections are gonna run deep. Well, why wouldn't they? Because their connections could run deep. It should run deep. You have Isiah Thomas, who's the greatest player to ever play in the NBA, and you have all these other people in there. Ron Anderson, again, you're speaking out of complete ignorance. This is what I'm talking about. A proven poor executive. How was he a poor executive, sir? You see that? Poor executive. This man who erased all of the New York Knicks debt built a team that the people could feel proud about. The CBA, I hope you mean collective bargaining agreement, because if you're talking about the CBA league, you don't know what you're talking about. Yet again, Mr. Anderson. This man bought the CBA out and owned it for less than $10 million. Sexual misconduct there was a lie. They did that to get Isiah Thomas out. But here's the thing what people don't know about the CBA. The National Basketball Association did what they always do. They competed and wanted to shut down the CBA because they wanted to buy it out and acquire it. They couldn't do it. Isiah bought it for like $10 million and was going to strengthen it. And they didn't care about the CBA because the CBA to them was no threat. But once Isiah Thomas decided to purchase it, it became an instant threat to the NBA because Isiah Thomas has connections into a lot of really, prominent businesses like Toyota. And Toyota was going to represent a team. They had real sponsorships that were going to put in money instead of Sam's car lot. You were going to have Toyota. He was bringing in all of these manufacturing companies and businesses that he was, acquired to. This scared the NBA because now their marketing money is going to be going out of the door. A lot of it to go support the CBA, which was not in competition with the NBA. It was a summer league. Now, of course, he didn't kill the CBA. The CBA was borderline bankrupt when Isiah bought it. How do you think a black man was able to purchase an entire league? See, they love to put a negative stamp on a black man, period. Isiah ruined the CBA. Isiah did this. He was terrible. How was he terrible? This man went from building the Toronto Raptors, got them the Rookie of the Year when they begged for Ed O'Bannon. And Isiah Thomas, who knows basketball, said, no, Damon Stoudemire is what you need. Built that Toronto Raptors team into a team that beat the 96 Bulls. The Bulls broke the record in 96, but one of their losses came to the new Toronto Raptors. Of course, it was a Zeke bias. The NBA told Isiah Thomas he could not take the Indiana Pacers job until he abandoned the CBA. And he had to shut down operations of the CBA. He could not coach the Indiana Pacers and own the CBA at the same time, even though that league was in the summer. And that was because the NBA was coming out with Summer League. So now the NBA is going to compete with the CBA in the summer. Game over. Because you can't compete with the NBA in the summer. You can't compete and go up against the NBA. The only way the CBA can survive is to play when the NBA isn't playing. That's just like what the Big Three is doing now. The Big Three is not in competition with the NBA. Isiah drafted Tracy McGrady, got them in there, so he built the foundation for the Toronto Raptors. So he does know what he's doing. Once the Raptors wanted to go in another direction, then he had to abandon ship, because now you're not trying to win anymore. You're just trying to use the Toronto Raptors, to try to build up your international fan base. But Isiah Thomas is about winning and winning championships. So he wants to do it and do it in the right way. No, it's always trying to show like, oh, well, the black guy wanted to do it, but he's a failure. How many other general managers have never done anything and have had the job for years? Isiah Thomas came, they got teams in the red and they never won a damn thing, and they still be keeping their jobs. You just seen Mike Dunleavy Jr. become the general manager of the Golden State Warriors. What has he accomplished to earn that position? What has he done? Absolutely jack in. Now, to make it even more plain and simple for the people out there so they can understand it better, the scenarios that they put in place that they want to be a standard and want to stand out for the rest of the world to see and and experience. Well, it's like, what they say. If they say, oh, you're gonna say it, then say less, because the scenarios are never going to change. They're always going to be present in the daytime. They're always going to be present, and it's going to be there. You can't get rid of it. It's not going anywhere. Yeah, Ernie Grunfeld was the GM for the Wizards for 20 years, and they ain't never been nothing. Exactly. Ernie, Gilbert Arenas' babysitter. That's exactly the type of point I'm making. They did nothing. Absolutely nothing in this situation. Mm-mm. I love Isaiah Thomas. He said he'll take LeBron James #1 overall to start a team above himself and Jordan. Sounds like a great, smart man to me. I don't know. That sounds like a man who has an agenda. Isaiah is a very smart businessman. He knows I have a powerful enemy in Michael Jordan. You're going to need a powerful ally on your side in this NBA game of today that would dwarf Michael Jordan's popularity in the game right now. And who would you have on your side that could pull that off? The NBA's poster boy, LeBron James. So if I'm buddying up to LeBron James, you know LeBron James loves flattery. So if Isaiah Thomas is going to keep flattering LeBron James, saying he's #1 and he played against Jordan and all of that, and say, "Hey, you even better than me," and this guy gonna be, "Yep, I love Isaiah. Man, what? They giving you problems, Zeke? No, I'm gonna take care of that, Zeke. No, we need you on TV." Hell, he put Perkins on ESPN. He put Perkins on ESPN. Perkins can't even talk. Again, Ron Anderson, your homework is terrible. You got to stop watching documentaries. Isaiah Thomas has never in his life referred to Larry Bird as an average player. You see what I'm saying? This is what I'm talking about. Dennis Rodman made the statement saying that if Larry Bird was black, he'll just be just another good guy, just a good player. He would never get the accolades that he got. No one ever said Larry couldn't play, and Isaiah was saying it sarcastically when they brought it up to him what Dennis Rodman said. Like, do you agree with Dennis Rodman? He's like, yeah, I guess, yeah, if he was, black, yeah, I agree with Rodman. Yeah, he'd probably be just another good guy. He's laughing because it's hilarious. He thought of it as a joke. What Rodman just said, like it's so ridiculous of a statement because Larry Bird was that business. He was the truth, and everybody knew that. Like you could be black, white, red, green, and orange. Larry Bird could play this game at a very high level, and he's better than damn LeBron. He agreed sarcastically, Ron. If you listen to the audio of it, you hear him laughing at the end of it because he's saying it sarcastically, as like it was a joke. But it was another way to villainize Isaiah. You see, you got to understand this is why the Pistons are the greatest team in the history of the game of the NBA. They're the greatest team. No one has faced more the whole league was against them. That means the organization, the the general managers, that whole National Basketball Association was against them, well as the other 29 teams in the league, or 28, or how many it was at that time. All of them were against them. That was it. So no matter who Detroit played, they were never going to be looked at as the good guy. Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, they were the heroes. Michael Jordan, hero. Isaiah Thomas, bad guy, villain. But that incident made the Pistons what they were. Once they saw the way the media and how the NBA came after Isiah Thomas, who was the guy that they loved. They loved Isiah. Isiah could speak. Isiah was intelligent. He did all these interviews, and then they went to tear him down. They hated the rest of the Pistons, but they used to love Isiah. And now they start tearing at Isiah. And he was the good guy. He was the good image of the team. Now, this made the team come together. Everybody who had any agendas outside of, well, I might go to this team or that team, they saw what Isiah did for Dennis Rodman. He basically took all the heat. Dennis Rodman didn't take any of it. Dennis Rodman was a rookie. He was a rookie in the NBA at that time. Isiah took all the heat for him. Dennis Rodman would do anything for Isiah after that. And that team bonded. From that day on, the Pistons promised each other. Everybody in here, you got to be all in. If you ain't all into this agenda, we will trade you to where you want to go. But we locking in. Guys came into training camp early and said, Zeke, we got you. They never going to do that again. The team locked in. And it was, for the rest of the NBA, they were in trouble. And the Pistons they created the bad boys that day. When they came after Isiah like that. And the way the other Pistons had to see Isiah fight that battle alone. He was never going to have to do that again. It was over. They were never going to do that to us again. Now the team gelled together stronger than ever. And you were not finna break the unit. It was us versus everybody. And you weren't going to intimidate us. You weren't going to do anything. We the bad guys? Yep. Now deal with the bad guys. Because we coming. And that was how it was. And the rest of the NBA was scared and in trouble. Well, that man's an idiot. So we don't really concern ourselves with too much of what he's saying. Because we know it's nonsense anyway. Wilt Chamberlain was torn down, and it was sadly done to me. In my opinion, very sadly done. And the reason it was sadly done is because when you tear down a man like that, you basically tearing down old basketball. And that was a major problem when it came to me in the NBA. Wilt wasn't their guy because he didn't care about basketball like it was life or death for him. It was just something to do. He liked playing, but it wasn't going to dominate or end his career, if he didn't win. Wilt was so good. The stats y'all talk about now would not even exist if they had him out there. There was no, we're counting rebounds like that or triple doubles like that. I mean, do you realize how many triple doubles that Wilt Chamberlain got and Bill Russell? Now, they rate Bill Russell over Wilt Chamberlain, and I understand why. He's a better defender, but so was Wilt. I mean, Wilt did everything. They limited Wilt. You know, Wilt was so much of a team guy. Wilt could score 70, 80 points a game. They couldn't really stop him. He was giving the ball to his teammates and spreading it around. And Wilt had his nightclubs. He played on the volleyball team. Do you realize Wilt quit basketball, then came back like 4 or 5 years later? Like he quit for about 3, 4 years just so he can go play volleyball and do other stuff. He just didn't have the drive to play like that because they kept coming up with Wilt rules. Like we got to come up with rules for Wilt. Russell would do a good job defensively on him when they played in the finals, but Wilt wasn't aggressively trying to dominate Bill Russell like that. He never played with the game with any tenacity to go out and destroy someone. He's just naturally powerful man. He was really powerful. Like it's like it's hard to find a player that defined the perseverance and just the drive of Wilt Chamberlain. Like he was an exceptional human being. He loved to see everybody else do well. Like he never really wanted to be the superstar of the league, but he knew, like he was like me versus Michael Jordan. Are you serious? Like he's like, you think Michael Jordan could beat me in a one-on-one basketball game? He was like, oh, he would just dribble around you. He's like, are you kidding? I was a decathlon. Do you realize what I did? Like I was a high jump champion. I could jump over. I'm a 7-footer that had a 40-inch vertical leap. I could do. You can. Michael Jordan wouldn't. It would be like it would be like a net going up against. He would not do anything against me one-on-one. Boom bada. This dude lift Arnold Schwarzenegger like a kid. Arnold Schwarzenegger was never manhandled in his life until he met Wilt Chamberlain. And he didn't even have to lift weights. He was in the weight room and they was just loading it up. He was just lifting to see how much he could lift. He was lifting like 400, 500 pounds, doing sets. And then even like, wow, he was more athletic and just naturally strong. Freak of nature. Oh, yeah, he's way stronger than Shaq. He almost dislocated Shaq's arm shaking his hand. When he threw the ball up at half court, he was shaking both of their hands. He shook Shaq's hand on, pulled his arm out of socket. That's how powerful he was. He almost pulled the man's arm out of socket. That's crazy. Well, they like Wilt as he got older. Older Wilt, they loved him. The NBA loved older Wilt and started to, incorporate him more into things. Mm-hmm. Well, I think he gonna stay with the Warriors. He just want the Warriors to pay through the nose. He want them to pay him more than the 20-some million that he getting. That's the truth. Well, it's any player would dominate this era from the 90s and all. Like those dudes was too durable, too strong, too everything. It's just a whole different world. You can't even put that into words. Now look at Wilt. Wilt's in New York. Look, he shake Pat's hand. Watch this. He shake Shaq hand. Watch this. Look at he damn near broke. He damn near pulled his arm out of socket. Look at this. Whoop. He pulled Shaq whole body went down. Like, damn. That's how powerful he was. He was like, boof. He was like, all right now. There we go. Damn. And that's an old man. Even Shaq was like, damn. And he dwarfs over Shaq. Shaq is little compared to him. He's little compared to Will. Of course. Well, they always try to bring someone up, right? It was Will and Shaq, who was the best. And it was like, Wilt was like, how the hell you gonna put him over Bill Russell? How the hell you gonna put him over Kareem? How you gonna put him over Hakeem Olajuwon or Patrick Ewing? There's no way. You know, it's a way of promoting the new talent. So what they doing with LeBron, we've seen it already before. The NBA they keen for doing this. You know, this is what they do 24 hours a day. The NBA don't stop. It's always promoting, always be selling. So they selling the new talent by using at the expense of the older talent, and you know, it is what it is. Oh yeah, exactly. Wilt was crazy. You know, you got disrespectful, he disrespected you right back. That's the thing about Wilt that a lot of people just didn't realize. We also on the Patreon we talked about Tina Turner actually shooting Michael Jackson brother. So yeah, that story's on there. Yeah, that's intense. Now, let's stay with this Matt Ishbia and the Suns. Now that you have all of the information that you know, um, if you're a Patreon, you shouldn't be saying "wow." You should be like, "Yep, I saw it already. It's on the Patreon." Now, well, the situations got more crazy with the Matt Ishbia because Matt Ishbia, like I said, this is a guy who grew up watching Isiah Thomas win NBA championships. So when he got to win NBA championships and all of these things started to happen for Matt Ishbia, he was a 7-year-old kid when the Detroit Pistons was celebrated on the court. Well, the parade and all this, Isiah was a god in Michigan. And now this is a $6.5 billion man and who had a chance to work with Isiah Thomas and made him a partner. He's on the board seat of their managerial firm, which is worth a lot of money. So Isiah Thomas is worth a lot of money, and people just don't know it. And that's just the way he operates. But they never speak about him. They never do these features on Isiah. They never do any of these things that they do for all these other players. And Isiah is a 2-time champion, 12-time All-Star, or 13-time All-Star. In his 14 years, he only had 1 year he wasn't an All-Star, and that was the year he was retiring. So, it is what it is. He was one of the greatest players to ever play this game. Even if you don't agree with me saying he was the best, there's no way possible. Like, people call him the greatest little man in basketball history because they have to give him some sort of title because no one has ever done what he's done. Nobody. So no point guard had ever led, no small point guard rather, because Magic Johnson was a point guard, but no small point guard was ever the leader of the team, led his team to a championship, was not done. You could say, oh, well, Bob Cousy, and Bob Cousy was not the driving force of the Celtics championship. No. Cousy, not to take away from Cousy. Cousy was great back in those days. Like, those guys were more skilled at the game than these guys today. You got Dave Cowens could go out there and hit. These guys could still, at 90 years old, they were hitting free throws like shooting 80, 90%. They could score. Dave Cowens was out there hitting hook shots off the glass, 3-point shots and everything. These guys were skilled. They had to work on their offhand. You couldn't just go to the NBA and can only play with one hand. Those guys was out of the league, period. I mean, I liked announcers like Donnie Moss. Donnie Moss was king, man. He was the king of all the controversy and all of the extra stuff that came along. Tiny Archibald was great, but he could never win. In the end of his career, he played with the Celtics. It was able to get a championship so they could reward him for all of the years he played in this league and played for the Kings and all this, and couldn't never really win. Isiah is going to build his son's team to where it needs to be. Now that Matt's here, Matt Ishbia, and they got a new owner, and the direction is clear. We need to get this team in the direction it needs to be, and the guy who's making the moves is Isiah. Isiah sees the future. This whole pull the trigger on Chris Paul thing it's business. I mean, you don't pay $30 million for Chris Paul at this point in his career if you're trying to win a championship. It's not. You can't trust it. You can't trust he's going to be there. And when he's there, the way he laid down and dropped an egg in the NBA Finals after Isiah gave him that praise and that compliment, it's just like he said in the beginning. He's too safe. And as long as he's that safe, you're going to get the same result. So thank y'all for listening to me. We'll talk about the 2023-2024 Detroit Pistons later on this week when we go through our rundown on what the Pistons should do, the outlook, because we back, baby. We back. we got the West and we got the East. NBA Finals. Pistons versus the Suns. Let's go.